Oh my god, I cannot believe that it is. I will be heading out to go see The Dark Knight Rises. It's a weird thought. For something that I've been waiting for 4 years. And it's almost weird, like, judging my levels of anticipation now, like, in reference to the fact that it's tomorrow. Tomorrow midnight. Well, you get it. The Dark Knight was one of those movies that just kind of transcended pretty much everything, where everybody saw it, everybody loved it. I mean, there's backlash, of course, with everything, but, and the movie is really stuck on. I mean, even when I still rewatch it, I feel the same as when I did when I first watched it, which is an amazing feeling, because a lot of my tastes have changed since then. Now, I think I have an audio review of The Dark Knight. I may or may not still be uploaded. It's from early 2009. And, I mean, it's a decent review, maybe at best. I actually don't think I've ever listened to the whole thing. But yeah, I feel like I've never really made a review for it, especially because it was such an important movie. And the fact that I really started making reviews, even though they're not up anymore, only about 2 or 3 weeks after The Dark Knight was released. And it was definitely one of the motivating factors for, just for me making a channel at that time, was like, oh, there's all these big movies, I should review them. And I'm not going to go too in-depth, because really, especially The Dark Knight is one of those movies where I could talk about for a very long time every little thing I love, but I feel like, and I know this is true, that almost everything about it has been said in every different way, especially on the internet. So I'm just gonna give you my thoughts on it regardless, just to build that anticipation for the next however many hours until it comes out at midnight. And for you people seeing it early, you are lucky fucking bastards. I want to slap you right in the tits. Forget I said that. We'll move on. So Batman Begins, easily one of the best origin story superhero movies out there. While it doesn't have the same wow factor, any slickness or intensity that The Dark Knight does, it has pretty much everything else. I mean, by the way of great performance, tone, direction, just setting the atmosphere of Gotham. I think Nolan really nails that in a way that no other Batman film director has done. There's been very creative approaches to Batman, but truly creating that world, Nolan just did amazingly. And it actually gets you interested in the mythology as being a legitimate thing and not just something goofy. When you hear the words Batcave, I mean, it's hard to take it really seriously, or really a lot of things about any superhero movie, and even if you indulge yourself in the fiction of it, it can still always come off as silly, and it really never does in any of these movies. They go deep into the psychological aspects of creating this symbol and why Batman exists and what he serves for Bruce Wayne. It definitely creates a very dark and realistic world and view. And I think this is something that comes to play in The Dark Knight as well, is the sense of morality, or the questions of morality, motivation, and as I said earlier, the psychology of it. And it's still an action-packed, entertaining movie, but it has those undertones in there that are really fascinating. And as far as the actual story goes, it does such a great job at balancing a villain and an origin, because a lot of origin movies have that problem, that they can't make it exciting but informative at the same time, because in order to get to those sequels, you really need to build that ground to work on. And it does them simultaneously while having some great twists and turns in there too, and just creating this very large scope of a movie. The cast is fantastic. I mean, all of the obvious mentions: Christian Bale, Michael Caine, Tom Wilkinson, Cillian Murphy. As Scarecrow was a really good villain when I go back. I mean, because obviously the Joker is the big villain of the series, and I feel like the Scarecrow really was something great, and Batman Begins really did accomplish a lot. Was a very high intensity movie. It does get downplayed sometimes because of how just on the next scale The Dark Knight was. While other Batman movies have called upon his origins just to give some reason for why he dresses up as Batman, this one really gets deep into the roots of that. There really is something to latch onto, and just to give you some insight into the Bruce Wayne character, despite the kind of superficial gloss over that other movies gave him. He really does have a deep and, I think, sometimes underplayed character, because there are so many amazing characters throughout this entire series. And Gary Oldman, oh my god, I love that guy. He's so awesome. Okay, so into The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight is just one of those instantly enveloping movies. The first second on screen, gliding over skyscrapers, and just, oh, the whole opening bank robbery. It throws you right into the middle of the movie. It's one of those movies where I've kind of lost sight of different perspectives of it, just because the amount of times that I've watched it, and I feel like maybe one time I watched it like 3 years ago, I just got a totally different angle from it. Because there really is so much going on, and there's so many different ways to look at it. I mean, yes, you have the superhero movie, you have crime drama, you have almost like espionage when he's going after people in Japan. It is crazy. There's just so many different new aspects thrown in to the superhero genre in this movie. When you think about it, there really aren't that many highly constructed action sequences. I mean, there are things where it's high intensity and there's a lot going on, but as far as there are your fair share of explosions, but those aren't even the parts that I think most people really connect with. Honestly, the dialogue is probably the best part of this entire movie. I think it's one of the few times when I'm talking about the Avengers, I mean, the scenes that I love are action scenes. They are on such a grand scale and such these hugely done things, and I feel like in The Dark Knight, comparably, but you do have the same level of tension because you have the Joker's threats, and I mean, it's there. I'm not saying that there's not action and there's not suspense, but I feel like there is so much more taken from scenes of dialogue that I think people really love, like obviously the Why So Serious scene, one of the big ones, or the scene in the hospital with Harvey Dent and the Joker and the dog chasing cars, or the one at the end, which I know a lot of people think, that's one of the few, like, consistent complaints I've heard, other than people just coming up with reasons why they don't like it that seem a little contrived, is that the last act, or basically after the Joker is captured, that part just drags a little bit and really could have been tuned up. I love that part. I think it really solidifies the themes of the movie when you have Harvey Dent, who is now Two-Face, and I love the way they did that, and they made it, because you really don't even expect him to be a villain in the movie. I mean, that's because people were focusing on the Joker so much beforehand. It so suddenly happens, and I don't feel like it was rushed. It fits so perfectly. And you have Jim Gordon there and his family, and then Batman shows up. But the part where they're talking about who's guilty for this situation, and there's kind of this injection of cynicism on Dent, but I think it really does create this societal arena that the Joker really plays on, and I hope to see more of in The Dark Knight Rises. And you get that in Batman Begins too, with these poverty-stricken pockets of Gotham, and just really and the whole effect that has on the movie at large. But the conversation at the end, I think, really does set in stone what the movie was setting out to draw focus upon, and what the Joker tried to accomplish. It really does serve as the climax of the movie, because that was the Joker's point all along, was to not only turn Dent, but to really make the city give up hope, and just really expose human nature. And while he fails at that with the whole ferry thing, and then they have to cover up what happened with Dent to really keep that out of the public eye, I think that those last 15 minutes really are such a integral and vital part of the movie that I don't see why people complain about it. I really love that part. And Heath Ledger, because I have to mention him, and he just, oh my god, what an amazing performance. I think anybody because when it first came out, that's all anybody talked about. That was the big deal. Everybody was saying, greatest performance ever. I feel like, and the same thing goes along with, like, people saying that The Dark Knight's one of their favorite movies. People almost, like, rolled their eyes because it was just something that was so common, because everybody thought that. And I feel like that sort of backlash, that always really pisses me off, because Heath Ledger's performance is amazing, and I feel like while it's obvious to say that, I don't care, because it really is. I don't care about the bullshit about how overplayed The Dark Knight, or overrated, whatever. I don't care. Heath Ledger was amazing. The Dark Knight is amazing. I don't know how to explain it. He was just in that role, and so believable. Disappeared behind the makeup, behind the words. Every line that he delivered was just drenched in this sinister urgency and menacing sincerity. And, oh god. It really is something that is very rare in cinema, especially blockbuster movies like this, where there are these parts that are just absolutely mind-blowing, not even on a scale level of grandeur, but of performance and writing and direction. And the interrogation room scene, not just for its performances, which are fantastic, but the way that it creates this commentary on society injected so fluently into the rhetoric is amazing. And I feel like I've said amazing like a billion times since the start of this video. I do love it when films, especially when they can do it smoothly and seamlessly, can add in kind of an analysis of society right in, because it fits so perfectly to Batman. I feel like that's something that Nolan was just one of his biggest points. He really wanted to add that aspect that makes it so almost transparent to the real world and real world issues. He does that very, very well, and I probably have gone far over the length of time that I wanted to, and I feel like I said nothing original. But anyway, tell me what your thoughts on Batman Begins or The Dark Knight are. If you have anything new to add, I would love to hear it, and even if you don't, this movie just deserves praise. These movies deserve praise regardless of how many times you hear it. I'm having some trouble articulating today, and it's getting me very frustrated, so I'm going to try to conserve that energy for coming back and doing my Dark Knight Rises review. So if you want to talk about your Dark Knight Rises anticipation, please feel free to do so in the comments. If you've seen it, I swear to God, if you spoil anything, I will hunt you down and chop your balls up with a machete. And if you're a lady, I'll cut your ovaries out. Okay, wow, whoa, it's getting scary. And don't unsubscribe, because I'm being very, scary and alarming today. Because I'm pretty much like that all the time. Holy crap, can't believe The Dark Knight Rises is almost here. Oh my god. Comment below and stuff.